You're listening to Crow's Cast, a podcast by USF St. Petersburg's student newspaper, The Crow's Nest. This week, we'll be discussing politics.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our pre-election special of Crow's Cast. I'm Trevor Martindale, the managing editor of The Crow's Nest, and I'm here with Molly Ryan, our op-ed and features editor.
Hello.
The presidential election is this Tuesday. We're recording this on Sunday, so unless there's some last-minute election drama, the polls should stay relatively consistent. So let's get into the polls.
I honestly thought we were going to have another 4 years of Trump when election talk began, but I'm starting to think otherwise with these polls that we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the dispersion between Biden and Trump in 2020 and compare that to Hillary and Trump in 2016, you can see that there is, quite a gap. If you look at, I think the numbers for 2016 were around 3.9 in the polling data, and then it finished at 2.1. And then right now you have Biden leading Trump in the national polls by 8.6. So there's definitely a difference here, but, again, we have to reiterate the fact that it's not the popular vote that elects the president, it's the Electoral College. So, we have to take that with a grain of salt and understand that state-to-state polling data is relatively close in some key states. So it could truly go either way.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important to keep in mind that polls are risky to trust because they typically have a large margin of error. But I truly feel people have just overall become more mobilized in this election.
So I think a great tool for looking at the election and, the aggregate of the polling data is obviously 538, run by Nate Silver. Basically what they do is really interesting. They take polls and then they apply them to different scenarios and simulate those polls and those scenarios over and over again. I think on the website they said around 40,000 times. And then they kind of have this little map where they show this is the likeliness of Biden winning according to our simulation, and then this likeliness of Trump winning, or the likeliness of a tie happening, which would ultimately go to Biden because the House chooses the president if there is an electoral tie. So if you look at the forecast right now, it says that Biden has an 89% chance of winning and then I think the most updated one said that Trump had 10% chance of winning, and then there was a 1% chance of there being a tie, which, like I said, goes to Biden. So it's a 90-10 right now, according to 538, which is, it is pretty significant, but, I think most people do not have the 90-10 mindset right now. I think most people are pretty nervous, regardless of how they feel.
I mean, you see a wave of support and devotion for Trump on the more conservative side, but on the other hand, many groups have consolidated and decided to just kind of settle on the Democratic ticket in order to get Trump out of office.
Yeah, and it should be really interesting to see how that actually calcifies, because, we see all these things online of this Republican person's endorsing Biden, or this they're getting a broad coalition, but it'll be interesting to see if that's actually the case and if that actually comes true on election day. So let's get into some key swing states that we think that not only are they swing states, but that we think will truly decide who wins this election. Because, there's always the ones that are generally you have Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, so forth and so on, that are all these swing states. But, I think a lot of the swing states, at least if you look at the polls, a good amount of them go one way or the other. So, for example, Colorado has been in the talks of a swing state, but that's clearly going Democrat this time, in my opinion. And Ohio is a swing state. Obama won Ohio at a certain point, and then Trump won Ohio in 2016. But the polls are close in Ohio, but I think that, pure speculation, I just don't feel in my heart that Ohio is going to go blue. So
you don't feel Ohio is going to go blue?
No, I think
I feel that Ohio is going to go blue. I feel like the Midwest is becoming more blue. I feel like the younger generations in those states are becoming more mobilized and more politically aware. Like
in Iowa. Iowa's getting a little bit more blue. So I filled out a map, and I think Biden's going to ultimately win the Electoral College around 294 to 244. So I don't think it's going to be a landslide like a lot of the polls are showing, or even I don't think the polls are going to be incredibly wrong, because there are a lot of people saying that if you apply the margins of error that took place in 2016, Biden would still win. So I do believe Biden is going to win, unless there's some some tampering that goes on. but that we're seeing right now already.
I mean,
but,
with this year, anything's possible.
Yeah. But I think if no shenanigans take place and we have a free and fair election, the American way, I think that you will see a Biden electoral victory. I think Biden's going to take Pennsylvania, which is what I think is the true key state out of the three that I named. But I think Trump's going to take Arizona and Florida. I do think, like I said, they can go either way. But just in my heart, I
think Arizona is going to be blue.
Well, yeah, that's possible. I think. Well, if you look at Arizona, I think Mark Kelly is going against Martha McSally for the Senate race there. And Mark Kelly's destroying Martha McSally in the polls, the state level polls there. But, I just think Martha McSally isn't very popular. So you could definitely have people who vote for Trump and then don't vote down ballot, so forth and so on. But, it could go either way. I agree. But ultimately, I think Pennsylvania is going to decide the presidency, and I think Biden's going to win Pennsylvania.
I agree.
All right, so let's get into the early voting numbers. This is as of November 1st when we're recording this, so keep that in mind. We have, so according to the New York Times, 90.6 million ballots have already been cast as of October 31st, which is 65% of the total votes cast in 2016. So pretty crazy there. I think people are definitely energized, and I think both parties are definitely mobilizing their voters. And then if you look at Florida, around 8.3 million people have voted, and that's 86% of the total votes cast in 2016. So just another example, an important swing state. People are definitely mobilized, people are energized, and people are definitely getting really involved this year.
Something positive we see with this election in comparison with 2016 is that we've just seen such higher poll numbers and voter interaction numbers with this election. We saw a record low in 2016. It was just pretty bleak for American democracy, but at least with this election, we're seeing a lot more voter involvement.
And something crazy is the fact that or at least historically, deeply red Texas has already surpassed their entire 2016 voter turnout in early voting. So that's crazy to see, and it could be pointing to Texas, at least turning purple to where it's a swing state, and the Democrats have a shot. And obviously, if you look at the electoral map, if Democrats were to win Texas, it would be over. There's no path forward for a Republican if you win New York, California, and Texas, and then all the other safe Democrat states. So that should be interesting to see, even though I'm still skeptical of all the Democrats who think that, like, oh, we're going to get Texas blue. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. Obviously, it could, but I think that's definitely not very likely, especially with, like, the recent stories coming out about invalidating ballots and all that. Another thing that a lot of people have been talking about is the fact that we may not get the results on election night. What do you think about that, Molly?
With all of the mail-in ballots and the drop-in ballots and early voting, I feel like something is bound to get messed up, lost in translation. There is just something bound to happen. I do definitely believe that the counting will not end on election night.
Yeah, I think it will entirely depend upon where Florida goes, and then how, like if there is a high level of voter suppression in certain states, if ballots are challenged in court, that could make the whole legal battle go on for several weeks, let alone a couple days.
But we might. It's just the fear of seeing another Bush v. Gore.
Yeah, and I definitely understand that. But, I think what the message should be to Americans is that knowing the results on election night is like a modern thing. There were tons of presidential elections where people did not know the day of who the president was. So I think there's nothing wrong with knowing the results after the election. And if that is the case, then we should not have somebody challenging ballots in court. We should not have somebody prematurely claiming victory. That should not happen. Unfortunately, it may. But like I said, I think it'll depend on the Florida results, which we will get certified. I watched on ABC, they were talking about, they said that they will certify the results because so many people have voted early, unless it is obviously very close and requires a recount. We'll get that pretty early, so like 7:30, 8 p.m. On Election Day. And wherever Florida goes, we're going to be able to know if it's going to be a close election, if it's going to be a landslide. But we'll see. It should be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a little scared.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's all for this episode. In the next episode, we will know, hopefully, who the next president of the United States is. And you can tune in for the post-election episode on Thursday.
And make sure to subscribe to The Crow's Nest on YouTube and hit the notification bell to get updates on when a new video has been uploaded. Thanks!